All right, welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Mike Cunningham, and there are podcasts that I've done interviews. Now, I think this is number 144,
Mm.
and some of them are great podcasts where I ask questions and we have debate and go back and forth. This is going to be one of those Mike gets to shut up and listen podcast. I am super excited about today's guest. Help me welcome former head coach at St. Augustine's. Augustine, I'm going to mess it up every time. University. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Mr. George Williams. George, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, Mike. It's good to see you, man. You look well.
Well, thank you so much. You as well, my friend. You've been around the block a few times more than I have, and it
Much more.
still looks like you could beat me around that block, though. That's the problem. George, I'm so humbled, man, that you would be here with us today. One of our goals here with the podcast is to capture the story, the journey of great coaches around the world, and certainly your history with coaching track and field. Second to none. I mean, there's very few people that have accomplished what you've accomplished, how you've accomplished, and important to me is where you've accomplished it. We sometimes get into this thought that we have to be a D1 or bust coach. We talk about that with the athletes a lot, but sometimes as coaches, we think the same thing. It's like, well, if I'm not coaching D1, am I really coaching? And you have formulated a Hall of Fame, amazing career at a D2 institution. So I'm just super excited to jump in and learn your journey today.
Thanks, Mike. Let's go with it.
Well, let's kick it off. Let's get back in our Wayback Machine. Why don't we start? Where does track and field start for you? Were you a high school athlete, a club athlete? Kind of start there for us.
Well, I was both. I was a high school athlete. I played a few sports. Most people talk about track and field, but my forte, I was a high school All-American basketball player. And I was one of the top scorers in my high school. And I also ran track, and I ran track to call myself getting in shape, and wasn't bad, did good, made the state in track. And we ran at Florida A&M where we didn't have any blocks. So we had to kind of dig a hole in the ground and set your blocks up, but it was all good. We had fun. I was running during the same time with Bob Hayes and those guys,
Oh, wow.
And so we had some really studs down there. And but basketball was my forte. And so when I left to go to school, I was supposed to go to the University of Kansas. We was talking about Lawrence, but they wanted me to run track and not play basketball. And I wanted to go with basketball. And so a friend of mine, Jesse Holt, God bless him, he's deceased now. He and I was on the team. And during that time, we felt like, at high school, we were not getting quite as much as we thought we could. And that was the club sport that was over there on 36th Street Park. And it was predominantly white. And I said, Jesse, let's go over there and see can we join this club. And Jesse said, well, okay, what you do, George, you go over there and ask them. And since I'm the fastest sprinter, I'm going to stay at the gate. And if they get you, you're going to have to, you start running toward me and I run and get help. And I said, okay, Jesse, we'll do that. So I went over there and asked the guys, I said, look, we'd love to join y'all club, and we like to be, because they didn't have blacks at 36th Street at that time. And the guy said, we've read about you and Jesse in the papers, and you guys are good athlete, so we'll be glad to have you. And I went running back to tell Jesse. Jesse took off and left me. The television said it was okay. And now they've named that park after him. Jesse
wow.
Yeah.
When you're talking about this time, this 36th Street, where are we at? I think of you as
we're in the 60s. We're in the 60, 61 area.
And in North Carolina or
Florida? No, in Miami, Florida.
Miami. Okay. So that's where you're originally. I always just think of you from North Carolina. And you mentioned basketball. So I thought, well, that fits North Carolina as well.
Miami, Florida. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So paint us that picture, George, because I don't know. We're talking here in a conversation with a white man and a black man. So this is hard for me to have this conversation because I don't have your experience. Mm-hmm. So I was going to say it's a little different back in the 60s than it is now. We're not going to get political, but I don't know that is necessarily true. But you're talking about a time where there was not racial equality. There wasn't expectation that a black man could do the same things and be in the same clubs and such as a white man at that point. You're mentioning this 36th Street, and you guys weren't. You were kind of persona non grata. There was no allowance there.
Right, you're right, and that's my wife saying goodbye.
Oh,
okay.
Well, hello.
that was really good. In that time, segregation and integration and all those things again. But I've always looked at people as people, and I guess that's probably one of the reasons that I've got to where I am, because I never tried to cross anybody. I never talked about anybody. I never tried to say who was right or who was wrong. Just like Brooke said, you have to be in the huddle to know the place, so you need to leave that alone. And I always tried to. My parents always tried to taught me to be a gentleman at all times, regardless. When people do bad things to you, you don't have to do bad things to them, and eventually they will come over your way sometime.
So where did you, and I love, by the way, that they now name that park after Jesse. Come on, full circle. Love that to death.
Right.
So where did you mention you were thinking about going to Kansas? You'd competed at Florida A&M. Where did you end up going to school? And did you play basketball or run track?
I ended up going to St. Aug.
Is that right?
Yeah, because I was enrolled in St. Aug in October. Never forget, October the 22nd. School had started by the couple of months, and they find out my cousin and General White and Lester, all my cousins said, well, look, why don't you come to St. Aug? You can run track and you can play basketball and everything. And I went to St. Augustine's, and I went out for the basketball team. I was the only freshman to make the basketball team.
Wow.
And then they didn't have a track program, so to say. So I went and got some guys on the basketball team, and we jogged and run and jumped and everything, and had a little track program. And matter of fact, the first big award that St. Augustine's won was when I was with the track program down there. I long jump, triple jump, ran the 400, ran the 100, the 200. I did it all. And I think I ran the mile too. I don't know. I ran everything. It was exciting. It was just like one big family at St. Augustine's during that time.
When you were choosing schools and eventually chose St. Augustine's, what were you thinking education-wise and profession? Like, were you thinking of, I hesitate to think that you were thinking about becoming a track coach at that point, because St. Augustine's didn't even have a track program, but what were you thinking for a job, a career at that point?
Well, I majored in elementary education. And at that time, they were looking for a lot of men to be in the elementary schools. And I got a master's in early childhood education. And then I went there and I got the master's from North Carolina Central University. And I taught school for a while. And I mean, God just was good to me. I was at the predominant Black school across the track. And then they find out I was a pretty good guy and teacher or something. Then they said, well, we're going to integrate the school system, and we're going to bring you over to Cary Elementary School and to integrate the school system. So I went over to Cary, and it was predominantly white at that time. And, my life, boy, I can tell you things that you wouldn't believe. But anyway, when I got over there, I had some good athletes, and they all around. They loved me. Matter of fact, they all was minorities, and majorities. I must say majorities. And so one of them was Vance Hefner, who was a pro golfer, and he was my quarterback on my football team and my point guard on my basketball team. And those guys, they really loved me. And one of the kids that was really, he fell in love with me, but his father hated my guts because he was the head of the Ku Klux Klan, Hudges. And so he talked, and then he came back over to the school and told the principal, he didn't know who that N was, but this guy got my kid doing more than I ever can dream of him doing, and we love him. And so I did that for a while, and then St. Augustine's called me over and asked me, could I help them out with the Alumni Association, because all of them knew me because I was an outstanding athlete. And I went to St. Augustine back over there, and I worked in the alumni affairs for a while and helped raise funds, and everybody knew me. And then after that, they decided to let me work in admissions for a while. I had to make an admissions and do recruiting. So St. Augustine's been my total life, you know, and I did a lot of things for it. And I worked in admissions in the registrar office, and eventually one day I was assistant basketball coach at St. Augustine's while I was doing all these things. And one day, Dr. Davis, a good friend of ours, and he was the vice president of the university, asked me would I do track for, and it was in 1976. He asked me would I do track because the track coach that we had there was leaving and going back home. And I said, but you know, my forte is basketball. I want to coach basketball. And he said, do track. And I, you know, Dr. Davis was such a great man. So I said, okay, I'll do track. And I decided to do track. And in my first track meet, I think we scored 4 points at the CIAA championship. And I said to myself, I got to go and talk to Dr. Walker. Dr. Walker's right across the streets there over in North Carolina Central. And I went to talk to Dr. Walker about track and how do you organize a program and how do you do this and do that. And Dr. Walker told me about all the things, how to organize it. And then he gave me a book to read on biomechanics and technique that he had wrote on that subject. And then I went to Big House Gaines, who was another good friend of mine. And I asked Big House, I said, man, you are a winningest coach. It's something about people who win. How do you win? And Big House said, well, first of all, you got to get good athletes. You got to get athletes that are willing to win and that can do things. And I said, and he said, you can't, Big House said, it's just like this. Hell, George, you got to get track runners. You can't use basketball players to run track, you know? And I said, okay, Big House. And then I went home to Miami, and I had a friend down there coaching named Coach Richardson. God bless him, he's passed. And he said, look, I got these kids out here. They're running for Miami-Dade Junior College. And I said, any of you guys want to go to St. Aug to run track? I said, now, we don't have a program, but whatever we do, we're going to start here. And we don't have a track. We don't have anything. I said, but Dr. Walker showed me about mechanics and stuff, and y'all come up here. And so they came up and visited the school, and they said, well, we'll come back. You know, it was a nice family school and small school. I think at that time we had about 600 students. And he said, okay. And they came back, Roy Ector, PJ, Leonard Stood, Jimmy Butler, who owns the school now, and just a lot of kids, and Dr. Wesley. So we started working, and our first in 77, we finished second in the CIAA.
Okay, let's pause there. We got a lot to unpack up to this point, George. So I want to go back to that story about the kid that really loved you and was excelling, and his dad was the head of the Ku Klux Klan. And you talked about that dad came to the school, said, I don't know who this guy is, but he's getting more out of our son than ever. I love him. Right. That's super interesting to me. And I wanted to ask you, you know, through your experience of sports and all different sports, I love that we're not just talking track here, you know, basketball and admissions office and things like that. What is it about sport that helps, not cures, we're not solved, unfortunately, but helps bring people of different cultures, different backgrounds, different colors to a common ground? I see that quite often in sports, like football players, you know, baseball player, basketball players, first time they've been around someone of another color or another culture, and they kind of find common ground there. What is it in your experience of sport that does that?
Yeah, I think it's that when a bunch of people get together and trying to do something to make them feel better about themselves, and sport is one of those things. And when they achieve something above their expectation, and the respect that most sport people show to each other, the camaraderie and the relationship, and it just brings you together. You don't have time to think about negative stuff. You think about positive stuff.
Oh, that's interesting.
The positive way we're trying to go,
That's interesting. I kind of have this picture of like tug of war when you're all pulling on the same rope.
Right.
You don't have time to bicker about the differences. We're all trying to do the same thing. I love how you said that. You ain't got time to think about the other stuff.
Right. All the things. And that's what I always think about USA track and field. I said, if we all just think about making USA track and field better, instead of worrying about what USA track and field doing and pulling, we would never have any problem. We would always be the greatest track and field country in the world, and go ahead and work. But we and definitely we're not in the huddle, so we don't know what's going on, but everybody's just pulling, and we just need to go one direction. Like the man say, what you can go fast by yourself, but you can go further together.
Yeah, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. You want to go far, travel with others. Yeah, let's
go together and we can get there. Right.
That's really important. So talk to me about Dr. Walker at NC Central. When you first took over around 76 of the track team, it appears you had a pretty big self-awareness of like, okay, I don't know what's going on here and how to do this. What led you to reach out to Dr. Walker? That's kind of that's sometimes a hard ego thing, right? To ask someone else for help. How did that come naturally for you?
Well, it's just, I mean, if you're around people that doing something good, I think it would be good to ask them and find out how and why. It's the different in this generation. They all think they got the answer, and there's no answer to anything, and I said, I was telling somebody the other day, everybody's talking about change this and change that. I said, what would happen if they stopped making the tie round on a car? They never changed that, So change is not all the time is necessary. It's learning how to relate and learning how to be friends and of people and things, and learning from the best. There's always some out there. I learn every day. I'm out there. I learn something every day. And it comes to my mind when I'm out to practice. It's like I was telling the kids the other day. I said, well, we're going to run these 200s. And I said, you coming across in 28 and the girls coming across in 30. And when they started running, I said, well, when you get about 50 meters, I started calling your time out. Because one thing about it, in this business, you want to get faster, not slower. So you got to learn how to adjust yourself to get out and control the race. And then when I say 20 and you got 50 meters to go, you can pick up so you can hit the 28, Right. And so we talk about all those things, and it athletic is a class, an open class, wide open class. It's not everybody sitting in there looking at each other. Everybody's trying to get something done. And that's what I consider athletic. But Dr. Walker, man, this guy, when I was running, I saw him take Nom tape in the back of the stadium. We was at South Carolina State, never forget it, and showed him in about 3 minutes or 4 minutes how to triple jump. Nom has never triple jumped in his life. And I said, gosh, this man here is good. He showed this guy how to triple jump like that. And I said, gosh, that's tough. And Nom went out there and won the triple jump. And he was a long jumper. And then next thing I know, he became a world-class triple jump also, And I said, this guy teaches a lot. And when I hear him talk to his kids about track, And I didn't have anybody to talk to us like that at St. Aug. And so we decided, hey, if I'm going to be the track coach, go to people who you've seen that has a winning way, who has a way of controlling. And I played basketball against Big House and Earl of Pearl. And the way I see his team doing and the way he controlled that team, there's something special about these people. So I want to know what it was. And that's why I went and talked to those young men.
You've talked a lot in your story so far, and we still have so much more to unpack here about, you keep saying the word people a lot. And so it's kind of obvious that, the relationship of coaching to athlete is pretty important to you.
Right.
You mentioned Dr. Walker's book, the biomechanics and technique. What do you have something that most of us don't have for a long time, and that's experience and perspective. You get to look back over the decades that you've coached and draw on the mistakes and the failures and the positives and the wins. How much do you attribute, if you had to put a percentage, a 50-50, 80-20 to the science of coaching, so the biomechanics, the technique, and the personality, psychology, if you will, of coaching, the personality, the relationship of coach and athlete, what would you give those two subjects as far as percentage?
Relationship would be the first. Learning how to have a good relationship with people, make people believe in what you're doing and what they are doing, and respect. And then the rest of it will fall in place, because if a kid love you and love what you're about and love the way you carry yourself, and they know that if they do this, that you are not going to tolerate with it, then that kid will probably jump off the mountain for you, because that kid is looking for that. Every kid is looking for some kind of help, or some kind of relationship with somebody. And you don't know where a lot of these kids come from. They can come from very disadvantaged families. They can come from families with everything. But each one of them is looking for something, that special person to be in their corner, to be around them. And once I get the kids in my hand, because I know when I got that book about biomechanics and technique, I used to have to go, I said, well, gosh, I saw something about boxes. I said, now, where in the world I'm gonna get boxes? We can't afford boxes. So I would go when the people build little houses and stuff around by the school and throw the stuff in the trash. We'll take the trash and I cut that out and build my boxes. And I build my ways to do plows and bounding. We had no track. And I used to have kids to run to, you probably don't know nothing about Raleigh, from St. Aug to Crabtree. And I used to always tell them, said, well, look now. They said, well, Coach, we can't run that far. We're going to get it. I said, well, okay. I'm going to give you this time to run to Crabtree. And if you don't get back by 6 o'clock, you don't eat because the cafeteria closed. And boy, they take out. And I had my little Volkswagen, and I meet them halfway and make sure, because if somebody couldn't do it, I would pick them up and take them on back, But
I love motivation. That is motivation right there. The cafeteria closes, you need to get back.
Right.
You know what I love about stories like that, and of course working for, Gill and the equipment manufacturer and things like that, as far as, buy and plyo boxes and all that kind of stuff. But I really do love, today we would call it old school mentality, but when you were doing this, it was called mentality. It's called survival. It's the only way I was going to get it done. I love the no excuses attitude like that. It's like, oh, we didn't have a track, so we ran to Crabtree. We didn't have plyo boxes to buy, so you know what? I went to where they're building houses. That kind of attitude, that's the kind of winning mentality that it was going to happen because of that mentality over every other obstacle that you had to overcome.
You're right. And that's kind of basically where a lot of that stuff started from, because I know Dr. Walker and them, they didn't have too much. I mean, they had a track look like a donut. And they had the best 200-meter runners in the country with Larry Black and all of them, because they were running around like a donut, and they ran the curve so well. And I say, wow, but back in the day, you have to persevere and endure, and it didn't bother folks. Nobody cared about whether you had something. But one thing I always noticed, and I taught my athletes, because you're poor, you don't have to be dirty.
Mm.
You got to keep yourself clean. You don't have to feel down for yourself. You lift yourself up at all times. And I've had kids that really, really, I'm just thank God that they came through my life, because I can imagine what could have happened to them by now, and like Batman always say, gosh, it was so good meeting you, Coach, and Broken Burr and all those guys. They said ain't nowhere in the world they could have made it anywhere else.
Yeah. No,
And because that relationship that they were looking for, and sometimes, from the places they are from, had labeled them as bad people and bad guys, and nobody is no better than you make them. Everybody's looking for some kind of help or some kind of love. Love is the way, man. You have to love folks. I tell you, I don't care who it is and where it is. You show people love, they'll show you whatever you want to get and what you need.
You described a great example of the positive power of coaching. Specifically here, we're talking about coaching track and field, but we're talking about a counselor, a parent, a best friend. What a great example of the positive impact coaches make. That's why we have you here, George. I just want to hear more stories like that. So you go from around 1976 scoring 4 points. We know how that season went. That tells us everything we need to know there. But the next year, you say you get second in the CIAA. Is that the start of, you've had so much success, Coach. Is that the start of success with these kids from Miami and then moving forward?
That's the start of the success, yes. And move forward. And once those guys who was from the junior college, a couple of them hung around with me and decided to help me with volunteer assistant coaches. And we moved from there, and then we started recruiting, and kids started coming in. And my main objective, and it still is that if you come to St. Aug, and I told all the parents, I said, I cannot make your kid run fast. I that's something that God has to do. Some of them I can make a little quicker with mechanics, but I can assure you they'll graduate. I want kids, when kids come to St. Aug, they come for an education, because most of these kids come from very disadvantaged places. And if they don't get an education back in those times, it's a lost cause. And so why go to St. Aug, or why go anywhere if they're not going to help you get your education? And when the kids find out that I was the type of guy that worked hard, and if you decide to go to pro, you coming back and get your education. When Nike sign you, they're going to sign something in there saying, we're going to pay for the rest of your education. And that's what happened with all my kids, and they all graduated. And I had about a 97, 95% graduation rate at that institution.
So where does that responsibility, that internal responsibility, come from? Obviously education was important, because we are talking about a time in the 60s and 70s that secondary education wasn't the be all end all. Like, today it's like, if you don't go to college, you can't make a life for yourself, which is not true, but it's kind of that mentality. Back then, not everybody went to school. You not only went to school, went on to college and got an education and a master's, but you're very fervent that, hey kids, you're going to graduate. Like, this is going to be number one. And if you go pro and didn't get your degree, you will still work on your degree. Is that something your parents instilled in you, or is that something you learned through teachers?
My community instilled into me with that. We had a kind of close-knit community back in there. We had a community in Miami they called Overtown, and we had a lot of outstanding athletes in that area. And you can see so many different diversity in there, because we had the Bahamians, the Jamaicans, the Cubans, and all of us, and I felt like an education would get us out of this and come back and help that situation. And when I went to school, and I knew, And then I used to go back to Miami and bring other people, my cousins, everybody I could see to St. Aug, because the fact that they need an education in order to develop that community in which we come from. And so, and then when I said, if I ever get, in a position where I can help, that would be the one way I help. But I didn't know it was going to be through coaching or anything.
Right.
I thought it would just be an elementary education teacher. And after I did that a while, I decided to go to Wake Forest and get a degree in college administration. And so that was another turning point to just work with people. And I work with every student at St. Augustine's University. I think we had 2,000 students once in the life of the school. Most of the time, we never had over 1,200 or 1,300 students. And you're talking about winning championships. After I won my first championship in '78, I don't think I lost the championship in, gosh, I think I've only lost 4 track championships the whole time I've coached in the conference.
Well, it's a pretty good sign when you can't remember when you won, instead of the other, like, hey, I think I won this year. Like, no, I can't remember when we didn't win.
Right, because I've never gone to a track meet thinking about winning. I think about the productivity, do the best that we can. See, I was teaching kids about what hard work could do for you. Work hard. Don't expect anybody to give you anything. Work hard for it and then let it happen, because everybody loves to see the glory, but nobody wants to know about the story. Nobody wants to know what the story has for you. And the story is always bigger than the glory. And so glory never made that much difference to me, because if you see anybody who's ever ran for St. Augustine, as soon as we win, or if we win something, we don't talk about that. We're thinking about the next year. We leave that behind. That's gone. It is gone. We through with that. That championship is gone, regardless whether we won it by 1 point or whether we won it on the last relay. That is gone. Now let's talk about making sure we pass our classes so we can run next year, or what we're going to do for the following year. We never lingered around on championships or winning in anything.
Now that's an important topic, because you're talking about the process over the results. So whether win by 1 or win by 100, win or lose, you're talking about the process, which involves not just what you're doing on the track with athletes, but their academics and passing classes as well.
Right. You have to talk about the whole process, right?
Yeah.
And the whole process determines how well people do. You just can't rely on one process. Rely on going out there and running 8 200s and 3 150s. That's not the full makeup of a champion. That's the makeup of a workout. But a champion goes further than a workout. It goes from a relationship. A lot of things are involved. I remember when I was coaching the Olympic team, and I talked to all the Olympians, and they probably thought I was one of the craziest coaches, but they all said, hey, this is one of the greatest guys that we ever met. Because I knew when you make the Olympic team, you only make the Olympic team, you make your whole family team. Everybody wants to be a part. And I said to them, all this hard training, you came here to try to win a medal. And you're going to hang out with your cousins and your family. We're not going to do that. And they said, well, I'm making this money. I'm this here. I said, yeah, but one thing you got to always remember, I'm the only one can get you in the meet. Okay? Regardless of how you feel about me, I'm the only guy can get you in the meet. So what I'm doing is the best for you, not for me. It's for you. Because if you win a medal, then you can take care of those people better than you're doing now. And I said, I tell people all the time, when you get on the plane and the oxygen mask fall, I tell my kids, what do the lady say? She said, make sure you take care of yourself first. Put it on yourself first, then you can help others. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to help other folks and do things for other people, then all y'all gonna fail. Mm-hmm. And I tried to make sure that my people and my athletes understood that from the day first, you know?
Now, that's a important topic for me. That's a passion topic for me, George, as I talk to coaches around the country. And you obviously know this better than I do. You know, as coaches, it's easy for us to fall into a 24/7 mentality that we are always coach. We're always on. The kids can call us at 10 at night, 3 in the morning. We're academic advisors, we're coaches, we're psychologists, we're firefighters. And sometimes we do that to the detriment of our personal health, personal wealth, our family relationship. So I love that you're talking about, you know, you've got to deal with yourself to help others. That's a large topic I have with and to track coaches specifically of, you've got to take care of it's all about priorities. You've got to take care of your faith, your health, your family, and yes, your kid, your athletes, but that might be number 4 on the list. And sometimes we skip over and put our families and our own health, our own financial health in jeopardy over the next 18, 19, 20-year-old to help us win the next title.
Right. And you don't do those kind of things, you know, and one of the things that I hate seeing people, I've watched a lot of Olympic teams and a lot of people. One thing always bothered me is when a coach skip over somebody for his own benefit or his own student benefit. You know, it's not good skipping over anybody, you know, especially a person of my colors being slipped over so many times. I tell them that all the time. I'm not going to skip over this person because the fact that John Smith coached them or whoever coached them, you know, but I'm going to take what the record shows. The record said if I got 8 guys in the 400 and they all ran 44 or something, and then you tell me I got one of the best 400 hurdlers here who can run the same thing, but the 400 hurdlers did not run that. They ran the 400 hurdlers. So why should I skip over these 400 meter runners who ran the 400 to be on the relay team? But a lot of people do that, and it shows a bad example of what we're about sometimes. And I don't like those kind of things. That's one thing that really bothers me of skipping over folks. You know, if you decide you want to be on the relay, then you need to show me what kind of 400 meter time you got, you know. And just because you've done this, you don't have a right to be here. And it's a lot of things going on in track and field that I see and I said, hey, you know, I leave it alone, because one thing about this world, and we always understand that God didn't make winners and God didn't make losers, but he made choosers. And we all got choices that we need to make. And if we make good choices, good things are going to come out of it. And if you make bad choices, they're going to come out real quick and you're going to see it. And then you're going to want to blame everybody. And I tell my people right quick, don't blame me for your failure. Please don't blame me for your failures, because the failure, if you got a failure, that's because of the choice that you made. And I started to stay away from that. And I just love kids. I love anybody. I teach kids for other schools. If they ask me what happened and what did I see, I'll be glad to tell them, and they'll run against my kids. They might beat them. It's okay. But I know we did the best thing we could do is get in shape and get ready for it. But this should be a family thing. The world should be just a family of love. And I believe in it really seriously about it. And when other coaches think they are better, no coach is better than another one. I'm just telling you, because everybody got a workout. You can get a workout anywhere off the computer, but can you get the application? Can you get the love? Can you get the relationship to make these things happen? You know, and that's one thing I always tell people. You know, everybody sometimes they look at Bobby Kersey. Bobby Kersey is a hell of a coach, because Bobby can get the best out of an athlete, and he works hard. He work them hard, and he call them names, and that would make it happen. And I do the same. And those are the kind of things that make good athletes, because God have already given them the talent. Bobby, I ain't seen Bobby get nobody no talent.
Right.
I ain't seen nobody, no great coach, no coach out there giving anybody any talent. You know, it's just like anything else. You know, you come home. I never forget. I went home one day and I told my wife, I said, "Gosh, I'd love to have me a nice steak dinner tonight." And she said, "Okay." And I got through and went upstairs. And then I came back down. I had a nice pork chop. She said, "That's all you got. You got to do with the best you got." And so I had to make that pork chop taste like a steak.
That's also the best taste of pork chop there.
You know what I mean? So it's just like you have to deal with what you have. Don't worry about what everybody else has.
Well, talk to us about, as you're going through, now you're winning these conference championships, and you go through a long career. Talk to us about, how did you go from winning conference titles to national titles? That's a different stratosphere.
Right.
And then I want to talk about what it was like, I really want to know what you felt when you were named the Olympic coach, because there's honors of winning national titles and All-Americans, and then leading Team USA is a whole nother aspect. So that's second part. But first part is, how did you go from a conference title winning team to winning national titles and winning trophies?
Well, that's a good question, I tell you, because I think we won our first championship in 1985. We had some kids to qualify. I didn't know too much about, the whole situation. And we had some people to qualify. And we used to go to the NAIA. And at the NAIA, we used to get disqualified. We had a good team. The kids was running good and going, but then we get on the relay team and we need a relay team. The relay team always got disqualified, and I didn't realize they was getting disqualified. So Joey Haynes walked up to me and told me, said, "Man, don't disqualify those guys. Please let them run." Because my uniforms was from the bookstore and they had PE on it, said all physical education uniforms. And I didn't know you were supposed to have track uniforms. And I just got whatever looked like you could run in and play with. And so we just kept getting disqualified. And then I started reading rules and regulations. And I started making sure I knew every rule in track and field and whatever you can do. And that way, and then we started qualifying, and I started getting kids that was running, and I'm saying, wow. And you never know what kids would do. We drove from Raleigh, North Carolina to North Dakota, got out the bus. We drove to Indianapolis, spent the night. Then we drove to North Dakota. When we got there, boy, we just got enough time to declare. We got out the bus, won the championship. As soon as the championship was over, we jumped back in the bus, started riding back to Raleigh, North Carolina. And so then I knew that something we had here was special. I didn't know what it was. And then I found out it was a relationship with all of us. We loved each other. We wanted to do well. The kids appreciated me giving them the opportunity. I appreciate them coming to St. Augustine's, a little small school like that. And it was just a big family situation. And we just kept doing it for some reason or other, because I know one time, every time I win now, every time we win, I ain't won nothing myself, but every time the team win, we would look at what the other teams had coming back and what we had coming back. We don't forget about this championship. We're looking up forward. We always look forward every time. And we always try to get somebody who can help us. But you never can get a whole lot of people at St. Augustine's like that, because we didn't have that kind of scholarship money. And so I would always try to find me 4 good kids and then just add whatever we can add to it to make it. And sometimes the stuff we add to it end up making the banana pudding much better. and so it just worked out that way. And so that's how we end up winning and we always wanted to be competitive. We train hard. If you come to one of St. Augustine University practice and the way we train, you probably would quit the team. A lot of folks just say, I can't do this, because I believe in working hard, working every day, doing your job, and moving on. We never talked about any other team. We never talked about any other coaches or why, because if my kid ever mentioned whoever going to another school, then we got problems. I say, no, we aren't worrying about this. We're worrying about what we have here. We got to deal with what we got, and we're going to make the best out of what we have. And the next thing I know, I've won so many championships. I don't know what's going to happen this year, because we've won in the conference. We've won 25 straight outdoor and 25 straight indoor. So this is if we lose this year, it'll be the first time in 25 years we lose the championship. But it's all good. Everybody has something they're gonna do, and I love all the coaches in D2. Boy, we got some nice coaches in D2, man. Yes. We are battle and fight, and we're not like some of these guys. And after it's over, we'll go out and have a beer, a glass of wine, and talk and smile and about what happened. And I love this. There's some good coaches all around here, but I don't know what developed the attitude of some coaches thinking that they're better than everybody else, and I don't understand that. And because I tell people all the time, you are either fast or you're slow. And when you inherit some fast kids, they do better. Some of the slow kids who probably was fast but didn't know it until they got with some other people that in their category. And so you have to give everybody a chance. You have to give everybody a chance, and you have to have a relationship. I don't know how I got to be. I just did everything people asked me to do. I'm just going to be honest with you. When the coaches thing came out, they asked me to coach the USA and Great Britain team. I did that. USA, Great Britain, Russia. Whatever they asked me to do, I did it. And I did it with the attitude of helping other folks. I didn't dream about being an Olympic coach. Matter of fact, Harvey Glantz and I was together, and we asked the guy, did he want to be the Olympic coach? And he said, no, he don't want to be no coach. And then Harvey Glantz said, well, why don't you be it? I said, well, I'll run for it. I mean, it don't make no difference with me, but I didn't thinking I would get it. When Deanne Worcester called me and told me I was the Olympic coach, I think I was changing planes in Dallas, Texas. And it didn't really hit me until the next day. And I'm saying, Olympic coach, Jesus Christ, could I do this? I mean, here a guy getting ready to be an Olympic coach with a budget of $200 million, and you got a budget of 700,000.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? And you saying, wow, how that gonna work? And then I spoke to my leader, Dr. Walker, and everything, and we talked about it. And then when I got to be the coach, and I figured out, I helped a lot of kids during that time. We had some issues, but nobody never knew about it during the time.
You mentioned you reached out to Dr. Walker. So Dr. Walker has been a lifelong friend, mentor, walking alongside you, family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're just like family. Ever since I was an athlete in school at St. Aug, and he was coaching at Central. I just kind of took up to him, and Big House loved me to death. Big House tried to get me to work at Winston-Salem. and I wouldn't do that. And Dr. Walker told me to stay where I was, and because he stayed at Central a long time.
Right.
And I don't find too many coaches been at a place over 48 years.
Yeah. It's funny. We had this conversation at the coaches convention a few years ago about coaches that had been there for an amount of time, and we kind of quickly came up with about 10 names. You were one. Mouse, Curtis Fry,
Dean Hayes.
Yeah, Dean. Yeah, come on, right? Absolutely. Rest in peace, Dean. Love him.
That was my guy, man.
But then very hard to think of others. We would name a name, and it was like, oh wait, no, actually, they've only been there 5 years, or oh nope, only 7. It's a rarity. It really is. What kept you? You were there for 48 years. You had to. I have to assume you had other opportunities, other schools courting you, but you stayed loyal to one program for 48 years. That's bravo. I mean, that's amazing. That loyalty and stick to itness, because it wasn't always positive, right? There's ups and downs throughout everything we do. What was it?
I thought, Mike McGee was a very good friend of Dr. Walker and myself. Okay. And everywhere Mike McGee decided to go to be an athletic director, Dr. Walker told him to take me with him, and he wanted to take me. And I told Dr. Walker that I didn't think I wanted to go to those places, because I think I'm needed at St. Augustine's, because the type of students that we were getting probably wouldn't have that same opportunity. I don't think somebody would treat them the same way I would have treated them, and help them out, because St. Augustine's also helped me out. And I felt like I was giving something back in a positive way. Didn't have any idea that what had gone on in the later years that happened, but I still believe if I had to do it again, I would do the same thing. I wouldn't do it different, because St. Aug was good to me. The student athletes that came there showed me all the respect, and there are a lot of them. I had about 8 to come over to the house the other day just to come and see how and sit around and talk. And the kids, and I get calls. I had one to call me yesterday and just wanted to maybe just confess how much he loved me and loved what happened. And he has a family, and he's the manager of a Mercedes dealer and everything. And I said, gosh, it's just amazing.
And so it's amazing. 99% of the kids you coached did not go on to become professional track athletes. They went on to be mothers and fathers and managers and business owners and lawyers. And I mean, again, that's that positive, that proof positive of what coaches can have impact wise on young people in this country. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah, but you to my lawyer. I got one guy. I talked to him yesterday. Xavier Donaldson. He's a lawyer in New York, and his son is running now. And he asked me about the 400 and everything, and he does a lot of interviews for. I don't know what the lawyers do, but anyway. He had a little controversy, and he called me about it. It was a rapper over in Europe, and I think Trump said he got him out.
Oh, is this
Xavier was his lawyer?
Kodak, is it Kodak Black or something like that?
Yeah, my track guy was the lawyer. Who was his lawyer?
Get out of here! That's funny.
Yeah, and I say, X. He said, "Yeah, that's my client." I said, "Oh my God, what are you gonna do?" He said, "Coach, I don't know." I said, "Well, whatever happened, you don't have to worry about taking the claim. Just do your job, and whatever is come out, it'll come out the right way,
George, out of the 100 topics I thought would come up in today's discussion, I did not think Kodak Black would be
right. Yeah, that's it. That's amazing.
Oh man!
But track and field is been good to me and my family, and I've And it's not been just the track and field. It's been the camaraderie with the coaches and the love that a lot of us have for each other. And like Brooks and I, man, we hook it up, and we just love each other, and And a lot of coaches out there like that, Orange Richburg and all of them, and D2 and kids like young guys like D2, them call me and try to figure out how this thing should go and how we should do things. And so it's been great, but people still honoring me, man. They're trying to name a highway after me now.
A highway?
Yeah.
This isn't like in Oklahoma, the guy, I can't think of his name, the football coach left to go to USC, and someone said they wanted to name the last 3 inches of a highway that's leaving Oklahoma after this guy because they're so mad that he's leaving. This ain't one of those things. It's like a real highway.
No, they talking about like they want to name one after Roy Williams, Dean Smith, and George Williams.
That's a pretty good Mount Rushmore of coaches from North Carolina, by the way. I like that. Yes.
And I'm quite sure Mike gonna get his when he get ready, you know, Mike and I.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, but that's awesome, man. I love uplifting and honoring coaches like that. More like I love Hall of Fames. I love things like that because we need to honor these guys and gals that choose to be track coaches. So a highway, I love that. That's because that's permanent. It's like someone's going to see that and have to learn. Well, wait a minute. Who was George Williams?
Right.
Go read your bio and be like, oh wow, this look what this guy did. The impact he had.
Well, North Carolina really treated me nice, and the city of Wake County, the county and the city of Raleigh, man, these people treat me so nice. You know, you that's one reason you wouldn't go anywhere else if you get a city that get in with you like that, you know, and just say, hey, this is our guy. We love this guy. This guy does a lot for the city, and so I love Wake County. I love Raleigh. And I love North Carolina, and neither I'm from Florida. Ain't that amazing?
Yeah, I'm shocked. I mean, you're from Miami, Florida, too. Now that's there's worse places in the world.
Yeah. And they got a George Williams Day in Miami, February the 7th.
Oh man!
But North Carolina, man.
In my book, every day is George Williams Day.
Like you, boy. We've been friends a long time, man. I
yes,
love
sir.
you, guy. Boy, I dig it.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm going to make an awful transition here, but I got some other topics for us to talk about here. But I do kind of want to address maybe, I don't know if I want to call it the elephant in the room or not, but I do want to give you an option. We talked about 48 amazing years at St. Aug's, transformed it. We're going to name a highway after you. So obviously there was a lot of positivity. The end of your time at St. Aug's ended kind of unceremoniously. Coming from the outside, I don't know exactly how it went down, but how would you maybe describe how that went down and what happened and what you'd like to share about that?
Well, it was a sad situation, and it happened with some people that had some ill feelings about, I guess, me, I'm quite sure, which I didn't know because the people I know very well, they wanted to do some things without confronting me about it. And I did not take well to it. And so they finally set it up so they can have somebody to dismiss me. But once they find out that happened, then they find out that it really kind of hurt a lot of people and kind of hurt the institution a little bit. And I said to myself, I'm not mad with those people. I'm not mad with anybody, but they made a big mistake. And I'm hoping sometime they would try to fix it, make it right, you know, and just say, let me walk away the right way. I don't need another job. I don't want to work for nobody, but it should, some way it should be fixed so I can just walk away smiling and loving my institution and continue to help those young students at St. Augustine's be successful or either better than the things that I've done and Dr. Robinson and so many people have done at that university, instead of having to kind of erase this black eye.
Well, thank you for addressing that, George. It shows a lot about your character that you would address it head on. So I do appreciate that. Now I'm going to do a great segue because I do want to talk about something I think will, you always kind of have a smile on your face, my friend, but I know this will put a smile on your face. One of our most impactful episodes has been with our friend Brooks Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
How did that relationship start with you guys? You guys are pretty close. How did that kind of bud into this friendship, this family that you two have?
Yeah, it started back in the 80s when we used to go to Colorado Springs to a coach's clinic. And he was one of the presenters, and along with some other coaches that ended up being really good friends of mine. And then after that, we started communicating about a lot of things, and I started taking a lot of things from him and using them in my program. And see, and I saw those things working, and we started calling each other and communicating with each other, and we just developed a really track and field and family love for each other. And a lot of folks, they don't know Brooks. They knew what Brooks did as a coach and stuff, but they don't know Brooks. Boy, that's one of the nicest guys you ever want to be about. His mouth is not bigger than his heart, but you would think his mouth would be bigger than his heart, but it's not.
I was going to say that actually says a lot, because a lot of people would say, and Brooks, I love you because I know you're listening to this since we have George on, he's got a big mouth. And I mean that in all the great ways.
Right. Yeah.
But for you to say that, oh yeah, that might be true, but his heart is even bigger.
His heart is much bigger, man. And he would reach out to anybody and help anybody who want to get better and do something. And like I say, he's old school and he don't believe in certain things, and I'm kind of old school, and we just, man, it's just two guys that a lot of folks probably have things about that I love about a lot, and that's Brooks and Bobby Kersey. Man, me and Bobby, boy, I love that guy. See, Bobby don't talk to too many people, but I'm one of them he does talk with, because Bobby got a big heart too, but nobody thinks of that because they're not in the huddle, so they don't know the play. Okay. And so if they got in these guys' huddle, boy, they'll be surprised how good these guys are and how nice these guys are.
It makes sense, because I think people people like people who are like them. And so, having been able to, have the honor of unpacking Brooks' story, his journey from growing up and then coaching in the different spots that he was at, it makes a lot of sense, because one of the words I would use to describe him is he is authentic. Like what you see is what you get, and
right,
he's authentic, and that makes sense, because that, like when you said, we just kind of meshed. It's like, oh well, of course you did. You also are authentic, so that makes 100% sense. Now we brought up this quote, and he brought it up during the podcast as well, and he attributed it to you. The if you're not in the huddle, you don't know the play. Where did that originate from?
Well, it comes to me. I hear a lot of people talking about folks and things, right? And one day I said to myself, I said, well, why are they talking about these people? Because they're not in their huddle. They don't know why people do what they do, because a huddle can dictate stuff you can't even dream of. And when I was playing ball, we call our huddle up and stuff. And I said to myself, some of these guys are listening. Some of them are looking over in the stand to see whether their mama or daddy there. Some of them are trying to find a little girlfriend. And I'm saying, wow. I said to myself, well, people don't know what's going on in this huddle. I'm in it and I see what's going on. And so when I started coaching basketball, I coached basketball for 1 year, won the CIAA Western Division Championship. And I said, gosh, man, it's a lot going on in this huddle. And I said, when people started talking about folks, I said, well, you're not in that huddle. You don't know the play. You don't know why things are happening the way, because this huddle could be really terrible. You talking about a coach who maybe son is sick, wife is sick,
Yep.
He doesn't have any money, or some things going wrong, or why things happening. You only would know those things if you're there with them in that huddle, you know? And so that's why I always use that saying.
When he said it, it hit me, because it was like, oh, like no judgment. Like, how do I judge someone?
Right.
I don't know what's going on in their life. And I think this is the example I used with Brooks. Sometimes we as coaches would look at another athlete, especially if it's an athlete that we wanted to sign and they signed with someone else, and maybe that athlete isn't running as well as we think they should. And it's like, oh, if the athlete A would have signed with me, we could be doing X, Y, and Z instead of not doing so well. And it's like, oh, so you're blaming the coach because you're thinking the coach is doing something wrong, but you don't know if that kid is having family problems, has gotten into the college scene. Like you're not in the huddle, so you have no idea. So how can you judge that athlete or that coach? It hit me.
You're so right, Mike. You have no idea, man. And so unless that kid put you in that huddle, or that coach put you in that huddle, and you'll be surprised what come out of those huddles. Boy, good gracious, you sometimes stuff you don't want to know. You understand what I mean? And so that's why I always use that statement. And I tell my wife that all the time. My wife asks me something, I say, I'm not in that huddle, and I move on. She'll cut it out right then.
Well, it's easy for us to on one side of the coin, when we're having an athlete not run very well, to give all the excuses. Well, she's not doing this, or her family, but we're quick to forget that part when we're looking at someone else and someone else's program. And it's kind of funny, that the double sides of each coin. Okay, George, I'm gonna put you on the spot here a little bit. You are free to say no.
Okay.
But I just, Brooks has 1,000 stories out there. You have a lot of experience with Brooks.
Right.
Give me share with us a story of a time when you and Brooks were together that just something hilarious happened. You guys not got into it, but just there's got to be some story to share with you and Brooks together for us to enjoy.
Gosh, Brooks is oh man. Gosh. Oh man.
In all fairness, I put him on the spot. I did not tell him I was going to ask this. So
well, he and I think at the 204 Olympics, we all stayed in the same unit, and Brooks and Aaron Richborough was the relay coach, and we had an incident to come up, and I just told them, I'm not going to do this. And Brooks looked, what? I said, nope, I'm not going to do it. And so and so and so. And so he and I called each other MF for a while. And and then we went to dinner that evening and had a good time. And but when we have difficulties, we get there and we argue and we call each other whatever. And we know it's about the situation, not about us, our relationship. And
that's important.
When you can find people to love each other like that, it's about situations that maybe things I need to look at, and things that he may need to look at. And after it's over with, it's over, and a lot of people can't do that. They hold grudges, and that hurts a lot of people. I've learned as a coach and as a father and a husband, whatever you do, don't do nothing to hurt yourself. Okay? Whatever you do, don't do nothing to hurt yourself. And if you do those kind of things, you don't have to worry about too much stuff in life, because if you don't hurt yourself, then you can help others. But if you do something because you dislike a person, or you think and you end up doing something that's going to hurt you and that person, you're in bad shape. You're in bad shape.
What a great lesson there with that story of you and Brooks MFing each other, yelling at each other, but going to dinner, that you guys could separate the action versus the person. The person is the person is the person.
Right.
Because it made me think about again, in the coaching realm of you have kids on the team and the kid makes a mistake, whether they're late for practice, miss a practice, fail a
Right.
class, break a rule, etc., that you can and should still love the kid, the person,
Right.
dislike the action and correct the action, but the person is the person is the person. That kid still has value and is still loved, not the
That
accident.
Mike, well, you put it right on the head, because a lot of coaches go through that. I know they do, but they don't. The kid didn't do what he's supposed to do, but then that's still that kid. You still got to run your program. So don't blame the kid for you not running your program. Okay.
This makes me think about, I love that. And we're thinking about that after 48 years of experience of coaching. And it's easy for us to say, kids are different today, social media, they don't care as much, whatever. It's easy for us to say that. And it's very common. If you go on Twitter right now, I guarantee you 100 people are saying stuff like that. What have you seen from recruiting and working with kids in the late 70s to all the way to the 2020s? What have you seen change, whether it's recruiting, how you recruit, what you recruit, the kids, where, how, what's changed over 40 plus years?
Nothing changed, but the mentality of the country. The kid hadn't changed. The mentality of the country making kids feel more entitled to things that are not there. But each kid today want to be successful, want to be a pro athlete, want to take care of their family, want to do all the above, just like any kid back in the day. But the only thing that looks a little different, the parents from back in the day and the parents of the day have a little more financial capability to do things. The country is helping a little more financially with everybody. But as an athlete and a student and a person and a kid, they still are kids. You know, I don't care what they do or how they do. If they go through that process, they're still a kid. Nobody was bone grown, okay? Nobody was bone grown. We all went through a process as a kid. These kids now going through that same process. But when you started blaming the kids, then you need to blame yourself, because it's something that you didn't do. Somewhere you failed in life, that you didn't do what was right. Because I could see a kid now and he could be the best athlete in the world, but he still needs that love. Kids need love. Kids need love and understanding and relationship. Just like you did when you were a little kid. You wanted mama to hug you every now and then. You want dad to say a good word to you every now and then. You want your coach to acknowledge something to you every now and then. It's the same. It's the same. It's just like the tire. The tire on the car ain't changed. It's still around. Huh? But you gonna tell me that the tires change? Every time I see a tire get on, it's round and it's rolling. And so the kids are not changing. The world has changed, but the people in the world still looks for the same thing from my old school days to the new school days. And until we tackle that situation as coaches, as parents, and as human beings, it's a losing situation. It's a no-win situation, because every kid is a kid. They have to go through a process. And just like I said to you before, God didn't make winners or losers. He made choosers. And they have to make choices. And you got to be there to help them learn what the right choices are and what good choices are.
So good. So good. So the average age of our listeners is around 40 years old, Coach, which means they are younger than the number of years you have coached.
Right.
So to all the coaches who are listening right now, what advice would you give a coach who is maybe 5 years in their career, and they're deciding whether they continue to coach, whether they or if they're high school coaches and they want to try coaching college, if they're a D3 college coach that wants to, they think they got to go, Power 5. What advice globally do you have for track coaches that are listening right now?
Well, if it's something you want to do, you have to put all your energy in it and your heart in it. And you got to buy in. You got to buy into whatever you're doing. And you got to have you got to stand on somebody's shoulder too. There's some people's shoulders you're gonna have to stand on. It's all a learning process. You just don't start out just coaching nobody. There's a lot of X's and O's and 200s and 300s and 3000s and 6000s you can run, but you have to have a meaning for everything. You got to have a meaning. Why? And you got to let the people know who you're dealing with. Why? Because most coaches want, you got to do it because I said do it. You do it because this is the way. That's not the way to treat people. You try to instill in your heart to their heart the same thing that you are doing, and why. Like I say, you're not in the huddle. If you want to be a coach, you still got to, if you got a family, you got to deal with them. You got to find out and let them know, see what they buy in it. Because it took a little time for my wife to buy into this coaching thing. And she just didn't buy it just like that, And then if you got friends, you got things that you need to do, you got to stand on people's shoulders. Don't consider yourself a super coach or that you got to do this. You can do it. But you got to learn how to deal with people. People are what you're coaching. You're not coaching things and machines. You're dealing with people. You have to have a relationship with people. You got to know how to deal with people. When you learn how to deal with them, then they'll do anything for you. But it's a team. It's everything. It's no individual, nothing. You can't do nothing. If everybody say I won a championship, I have not won one championship. Those student athletes have won. So all I was there to make it smooth and easy for them. Coaches, sometimes they ask for a whole lot of money. They do a lot of things and they think, I got this, I did this. You haven't done nothing. The student athletes have done all that. And if you just listen to them and work with them, your reward will come in life like mine. When I knew God had me here for a special reason. When I got in that accident over in Doha, and I actually died over there. And I could see the angels and heaven and everything. And I don't know when I woke up, but the story, my wife told me the story and everybody told me the story, but I know I left here. I left this earth. I saw it. I was in there with the angels and everybody. And I just thank God for bringing me back. But, and I looked at it and said to myself, why did this happen? And know why it happened? Because I didn't listen. I didn't listen to the man when he said, don't drive this thing over 35 miles an hour. I was thinking I can do what George Williams wanted to do. But that was a rule, and I broke the rule. I drove at 60 miles an hour and it flipped. And so life is the same way to people, follow the rules, enjoy, love folks, love people, and work hard. Don't expect somebody to give you anything, because it's not out there. Anything you want, you work hard for it, you can appreciate it more. And if you go out there and be a coach and you love those kids and you work with those kids, and don't try to make kids think you are it. You are not it. They are it. Okay.
I love, after 100 plus interviews, I'm starting to get good at picking up themes in people's journeys and sharing their stories. And for you, George, I hear people, love, and relationships throughout your entire career, from your friendship back
Right.
in in Miami and Jesse,
Right.
till today, and the kids that you have had the pleasure to work with who are now grown adults.
Right.
I just love that. George, as we start to wrap up, tell me, you are still coaching. Tell us what you're doing today in the realm of coaching track and field.
Okay. Every morning, 9:30, I'm at Duke University, and I have about 12 kids that are trying to make a team. And one of them is Teal Donna Bell, one of my former athletes who holds the Division II NCAA 400-meter hurdle record. Matter of fact, I got both of those records. Batman hold one, and Teal Donna Bell hold the other one. and 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 I got a kid, another 400-meter hurdle kid from Jamaica. I got two young ladies. One run the 400 from Tennessee, and one from Carolina. They run the 4 and the 2. And I got my sprinter, Burkhard Ellis, and got Miles Pringer, who ran for Ashland, one of the top athletes there. And so we having fun. And this has been so much fun. They are all lovable kids, and they all love to help me come out there and smile. Like yesterday, it was a little cold, and I went out there and say, "Good morning to you. We're all in our places with bright, shiny faces. So this is the way to start a new day." And they just went wild. So you just got to keep it real, and we just love each other, and I'm hoping that some of them will make a team and follow their dreams, and that would make me so happy, because the fact that God has been good. I don't need no job. I don't need no money. Just like people say, money and all that. I got a lovely wife, a lovely family. Got one granddaughter at Howard, one at Penn State. My daughter and my son-in-law is doing well. Awesome. My son-in-law works for Apple. My daughter works for Procter & Gamble. We are fine. But to see these young folks be fine, it's just opened my heart up. And you know what? Brooks is the same way. Brooks is the same identical way. That's why we're so close. Mm-hmm. He loved to see young people be successful.
I love how your face lit up when you were talking about the kids. And I mean, that to me is like, if there was a way to like define what it means to be a track coach, like I couldn't even put it into words. I would just show that picture right there of your face. It just beamed when you were talking about working with these kids on a daily basis.
Right. And it's fun, and they're going to get it and then each other. And I'm going to tell you another thing happened at St. Augustine's a lot of people don't know. That we won championships with student athletes who kids are coming to St. Augustine. We won championships with. That's a longevity, huh?
Yeah.
I was talking to a kid the other day, and I was telling him his mother won our first championship. And then I said, "You won number 32, I think," or something like that. He said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." That's amazing, though. It's been all fun, though. And that's a good thing. If you treat people right, the parents send them back to you. And so that lets you know that was some love there. You know?
That's real. It's one thing to say something and then there's action, right? I mean, sending your kids to the coach you had, that's a pretty good validation right there. George, man, I'm just so honored. One of the great things about this podcast for me is it started as a passion project a couple of years ago. Was the ability to have people like you on that I get to now kind of represent really thousands of other people right now and tell you thank you. What you have done over the decades, you have influenced. What's awesome about your story is we can easily kind of in our head picture the hundreds, if not thousands of athletes that you have positively affected. Like that's kind of easy because coaching and on the track and we see it and obviously all the titles and things like that. But those kids all went out. We kind of talked a little bit about this. They all went out and became moms and dads and lawyers and business owners and CEOs, and they have had positive impact on others. Your reach goes to the millions, my friend. And so from the tons of people in the track and field community, specifically people that have had just the off chance of asking you one question before, people that have seen you and seen the things that you've accomplished, and so they were emboldened to go try as well. We just want to say thank you from everybody in the track coaching community, man. You are an absolute icon, my friend.
But Mike, let me thank Gill Sports. You remember we used to go to New Jersey and used to work with all these little young coaches and have people there talking to these young coaches. Now, that big oak tree put out a lot of acorns, and they'll spread it all over this country. And Gill Sport, don't ever underestimate what they have done for this world of track and field, and probably many other sports. But I can speak for track and field. That's the only hurdle I'm in with you.
That's right.
So, but I would want to thank you guys for what you do for track and field. And I know, and I hope you guys keep it up and pull these young coaches in. And if any young coach you listen to me today, you need to deal with Gill, because they got some good stuff in there you can learn how to coach by. But you got to follow the rules. If you don't follow them, you're not going to make it. Okay,
George, kind words. Thank you so much. We do what we do because of who you are, my friend. And so again, just humbled, man. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. This is this immediately vaults up into my top two. I'm gonna put you and Brooks tied, number one right there. It's just my icon series, man. I just love you to death, and I'm just so grateful for our friendship and what you've done for track and field and for Gill, man. Thank you so much.
Love you, man.
Love you, brother.
And take care. Okay. Yes,